What is something that someone said to you that is so stupid you thought they were joking? We were watching the ID channel about a couple of murderers that were executed during the reenactment scenes. Dude next to me says, "That's cool that they let them out of prison to film this." My shift lead at the microbiology lab I work at told me that they believed that dinosaurs didn't ever exist, that they were mythical beasts like unicorns, and it'd be cool if they were ever real, but they weren't, so it's not. She also said that all fossils found are fakes to just get publicity. A girl told me she had to delete some photos off her phone because her phone was feeling too heavy. Same girl thought potatoes grew on trees. That can't be true. If I met someone who said that, I would lose faith in just about everything. Lots of questions from customers in the rafting industry. At what elevation do deer turn to elk? Who puts the rocks in the river? Where are the tracks that lead the boat? As if the Whitewater River trip is at Disneyland and the whole thing is a ride. At the put-in, can't I just leave my things here so they'll be here when we get out? Tons of people think you take out on a river at the same place you pull it. Like it's a circle and the current goes back uphill. School I worked at had a long-term sub in the 8th grade because nobody wanted the position. One day in the lounge I mentioned how one of her students was really annoying. I'm the art teacher. And she goes, "Ugh, that little mentally deficient prick is so annoying. He's trying to learn German too." I didn't respond because she just called a student mentally deficient and also trying to understand why him trying to learn German made him mentally deficient. Then she goes, "Here's what I want to know. German and Japanese, is there a difference?" I stared at her for a while thinking she was making a joke, but she kept waiting for an answer. When I explained German came from Germany and Japanese from Japan, she goes, "Ugh, I don't even get it." That person probably didn't get a lot of things. Every time we used to visit a beach near my grandmother's house in Barbados, my mother used to remind us of a young woman who came up to her and asked her what state she was in because her boyfriend was playing a practical joke on her and telling her they were outside of America, and everyone knows there's nowhere outside of America. I don't want to say all Americans think this, but there does seem to be a trend of Americans thinking that it's sort of the center of the world, and maybe who can blame them? I mean, so much stuff comes from America. I mean, a lot of TV and whatnot. When I was a little kid, I kind of thought I lived in America for a very short period of time because of all the American TV that I was watching, so I just presumed where I live equated to what TV was on. I was very young and super stupid. When someone mentioned that 1 in 3 people get cancer in their lifetime, another friend in the group said that the statistic is crap and that he sees it as 50-50, either you get it or you don't. This dude was studying architecture. Wonder if he thinks the odds of any building falling apart is 50-50 too. That's weirdly something that's been on my mind lately, because I have been wondering, what if I get cancer when I'm older? Will I survive it? Will I be one of the lucky ones? I once had a conversation with a coworker who told me that they wished they lived back in medieval times because it would have been fun to battle orcs and dragons. This was right when Lord of the Rings was coming out in movie form and were very popular. At first, I assumed he was saying he would like to live in the Lord of the Rings universe. After a minute, I had a sudden realization. I came to realize he meant that he thought dragons and orcs and things like that really existed at one time. I, and several of our co-workers, spent the rest of the day and months after trying to convince him that that wasn't the case. He strongly believed that during the dinosaur age, there were also dragons, orcs, trolls, etc., and we were fighting them with swords and knights. And you had to go and crush his naive little idea of how the world was. God damn it, why'd you do it to him? Not me, but a friend. She's from the Philippines, and she legitimately got asked if she lived in the trees when she was there. Okay, this got me wondering if maybe there was a reason they asked that sort of question, because like, why would you just ask specifically, "Oh, you're from the Philippines, so you must live in tree houses or something?" So I looked it up. There are some really impressive looking tree house resort type locations that you can stay at there, but I don't know if there's like, I thought maybe he might have seen a documentary where it's like, in this village everyone lives in a tree house. But as far as I can tell, that is not the case. One night after volleyball, we were hanging out at the bars. A mutual friend walks by at a pivotal moment in the conversation. My buddy asks him, "Hey guy, how long does a pregnancy last?" He shrugs, says, "I don't know, 18 months. We got a good giggle out of it, and then I just died after finding out he was serious. We are 30 years old. That might not be the case for humans, but Asian elephants do in fact take 18 to 22 months, I believe. Ladies, I'm sure we can both agree 9 months is a long time to carry a small life inside of you, but imagine doing that for goddamn nearly 2 years. Holy crap. I worked in an open kitchen at the time. The boss told us we needed to wash our gloves, disposable latex, because he was having to buy too many. I presume you're working for a crustacean that owns a successful restaurant under the sea? A truck driver complained to me about the government wasting our money on infrastructure. A pregnant girl at work just sort of put it out there that her baby got its nourishment through her belly button. Like, as in, she believes that somehow her child is getting fed through her own belly button, not the baby is getting nourishment through the umbilical cord and what would become its own belly button. Another girl was walking by us at the time and literally stopped mid-step, shook her head, and then kept walking. Oh man, not nearly as bad, but it reminded me how a few months ago I was out with a friend and I got a very, very, very simple math equation wrong when I was working something out, and this old lady stopped, looked at me and went, "You can't be bloody serious." And I turned to her and I said, "You stay out of this, you," because you know when you have those moments where you're just a second behind. You know you're wrong, you know you got something wrong immediately, you're about to correct yourself midway, but no one will let you live it down. Until I was a month shy of 22, I thought the 7 C's were actually the 7 C's. Continents. We got our tests back and this kid turns to me and asks, "Does F stand for family?" A piece of my soul died that day. This was 8th grade. There was a dude in my chemistry class who apparently didn't believe in the atomic theory of matter. He claimed no one could see atoms, so there was no reason to believe they existed. The professor just told him that he still had to learn it or he would fail the class. Also, a girl in my circle of friends said evolution was impossible because a few thousand years wasn't enough time for all that. I only realized she was serious when she got really mad at me for laughing at her. I was talking to a coworker about global warming and how eventually polar bears could be extinct. He said, "What's a polar bear?" I said, "What do you mean?" He then said, "Well, a polar bear is nothing but a white-colored bear, so they'll just leave the Arctic and live in the forest." I thought he was joking, but no, he wasn't. I mean, worst case scenario, if all the polar ice caps just completely melted, we're in flooded Earth right now or something like that, and there was some kind of rescue attempt to keep some polar bears alive in captivity or in preservations and stuff like that, and there was legitimately no place with that much ice or snow to put them, then yeah, they probably would dump them in a snowy forest or something like that in Canada, and then they probably eventually evolve and acclimate to that environment over time. So I guess technically he's not wrong in the case of a apocalyptic scenario. I'm not thinking too hard about this though. My sister and I were at my dad's house for his birthday dinner. My sister had brought her kids, my 4-year-old niece and 2-month-old twin boys. My sister was exhausted. She had hardly slept in the last 2 months, and coming to dinner was the first time out of the house in a while. She looked like crap, but was happy to be there with lots of family to take care of the kids for a couple of hours. My step monster, who has never had kids, asks her, "Are you tired?" She replies, yeah, the pregnancy was hard. I had complications from the C-section. They're not good sleepers or eaters. I'm always breastfeeding one of them. It's been a very hard couple of months. I'm always taking care of one of them." Step monster replies, "Oh, that is hard. It sounds like when our dog was a puppy and we were kennel training her." Everyone turned to look at her, mouths agape, including my dad. She wasn't kidding. My sister looks up and says, "Yep, it's exactly like that." I'm not going to say that raising a dog is like raising a baby, but when my dog was a puppy, she was a major handful. I'm telling you, it was so bad at one point that we briefly had the thought of, did we make a mistake on getting this dog? But over time, she got used to us, mellowed out, and she became a sweet little doggy wog. Bit of a diva, though. The spork is the devil's utensil, because it is the amalgamation of the masculine fork and the feminine spoon, and is trying to blur gender lines in society. That is some omega level conservative thinking right there. When I was a new teacher, one of the old timers was venting in the teacher's lounge. She said, "This would be a great job if it wasn't for the kids." I laughed and she exploded at me, told me I was still too young to hate them. She said I would grow up myself in a few years. That was 26 years ago. Kids are still 100% the best part of the job. I can't imagine anyone staying in education that hates kids. What a sorry life. What a sorry thing to do. How sorry for the kids. My brother told me today that he's pulling out his 401k way early despite the heavy penalties to invest in the stock market. This is because Trump is the best president now, and unlike Obama, he's a businessman, so there's no way he can lose. This is his new retirement plan. I have no frame of reference of what is or isn't a good idea to do when it comes to stock market stuff. You know what? I'm gonna go to the library, I'm gonna read up on stock stuff and just see what I can learn from it. At work, I got a wet washcloth and squirted some dish soap on it to wash off a table. Coworker freaks out.
Oh my god, you're not going to wash the table with that, are you? People could get sick.
What? Why? I say as I inspect a clean washcloth.
The soap! People will get the runs from the soap!
The soap that's meant for cleaning eating utensils? If they chugged it, sure they would, but this amount will certainly not give anyone the screaming squits. No, I didn't say that. I stared at her completely dumbfounded that she was absolutely serious. My question would be, what has she been cleaning the utensils with this entire time? Not me, but someone I know. So he and his wife and their friends got to go to the Super Bowl last year maybe. They normally watch it live on TV. His wife says in the most serious straight face ever, "Where are the yellow lines that tell the scores and stats and stuff?" I was checking out some cars with a friend at a car dealership that my friend was potentially interested in buying. I was just tagging along offering my opinion but wasn't interested in buying one myself. At one point, the car dealership employee who was talking to my friend starts asking me questions like, "Would you be interested in buying a car too? Have you owned a car before?" etc. Long story short, I tell him that I used to own a Renault car when I was living in Europe, but Renault is a company that doesn't sell cars in the US as far as I know. The employee responded by saying that European cars are not available in the US because they don't have seatbelts or airbags. Oh my god, I didn't realize I was riding around in death traps my entire life. I used to work at a popular fast casual soup sandwich restaurant. A woman asked my friend and I if there was cheese in the broccoli and cheddar soup. We laughed in her face. Turns out that's not how you're supposed to handle that situation. Is that a silly question to ask? Yes. Have I also asked silly questions in the past before because I'm absent-minded and a little silly-billy sometimes? Yes. Maybe she was just having a brain fart moment, but still, yeah, it's a silly question. My mom thought that anteaters and sloths are the same animal, just with different names. It is one of those things that as someone who absolutely adores animals and loves animal trivia and whatnot, knows a lot about different animals, not everyone else does. Spanish class in middle school. Kid asks the teacher, "What's the Spanish word for tortilla?" She just looked at him stunned. I think I was in college at the time and in biology class when they went over some human anatomy, particularly the human reproductive system. Now, I learned a lot of the basics back in middle/high school and didn't think much of it when they were talking about the female organs, but the girl next to me was seriously surprised when the professor mentioned that there was a separate pee hole as well as a separate SX hole. I remember she looked at me with the widest eyes and said, "They're different holes? Were you there?" Honestly thought she was messing with me. We were in class and we began talking about the Black Death, the bubonic plague, and I said that the bubonic plague was probably the deadliest disease outbreak in history, seeing as it wiped out a third of humanity. And this super duper level 3 Christian girl asked me how I knew if it happened in the Dark Ages. I said that even though it happened a long time ago, that those cities were able to record what happened. The mortality rates and its effects throughout Europe, no one has ever wondered if the Black Death happened. We know it did. She said, "But you can't really know if it happened or not. I mean, were you there?" She seriously didn't believe that the Black Death ever happened. This female dog said that stupid line all the frickin' time. It was her go-to excuse when she said that the Bible was the oldest written set of laws, and I said that the Code of Hammurabi is well known to predate it and that there were at least 2 other sets of rules created by the Sumerians that predate the Code of Hammurabi. She said that the Code of Hammurabi didn't exist. I googled it and showed her that it was a well-known set of laws that have been written about in length. She said, "But that's just the internet. They can make stuff up easily. Can they prove it? Can you? Were you there?" She used this when it came to a lot of things, especially evolution. "Were you there?" care. Just because something doesn't fit your stupid agenda doesn't mean it didn't happen. This sucked because she was honestly one of the most beautiful girls I've ever had the fortune of meeting. I had a friend in the class who was thinking of asking her out, and so was I when we first met her. And when she began to show the crazy, I remember that he and I made eye contact and moved our chairs away from her slightly, enough to show to the others that she was hot but not worth it. My incredibly stupid stepmother, who's 65-ish, said, "How did they know what the dinosaurs were called back then?" in a very serious voice and facial expression while watching a documentary. We were playing a trivia game and a good friend of mine didn't know who Queen Elizabeth was. We told her it's the Queen of England. We tried United Kingdom. She had no idea what we were talking about. Now, if you live in some obscure place with no basic education, sure, but we live in the Netherlands, so it's less than 1 hour away by plane. Someone once told me that pigs are the closest living relative to humans. I started laughing and asked, what about monkeys and apes? They replied, I better Google this, you're laughing really hard. I'm not playing devil's advocate or anything here because I know that's wrong, but they might have gotten that idea because apparently you can replace humans' organs with pig organs? I know there has been a successful transplant with a pig's kidney into a human. I don't want a house someone has already lived in. My sister, while we were talking about her buying a house and why she couldn't get one that was already in an established neighborhood and didn't cost as much since he couldn't really afford a house anyway but insisted on buying one. Was that run-on sentence exhausting to read? Because so was our conversation. I had arrived 20 minutes before the start of my shift at a new job, so I decided to kill time in the break room and read a book. 2 minutes to go. I put the book in my locker and headed down to the sales floor to punch in. My boss sees me and taps his watch. You're late, he says with his usual smiling eyes. I chuckle in response as if to say, right, late. It is precisely 9 a.m. I'm docking your pay. Don't let it happen again. He fixes me with a stern look to make sure I know he's not joking. I look at the time clock. It says 9:01, a minute faster than my wristwatch. He's effing serious. I made minimum wage back then, so 1 minute literally equaled a few pennies. Yet he indeed took the time to subtract those pennies from my paycheck at the end of the month. When my shift was over at the end of the day, I still had a fair amount of stock on my cart left to shelf, which ordinarily I would have taken care of, but I strode past my boss and punched out, prompting him to say, "You haven't finished your work." Shrugging my shoulders at him, I replied, "Sorry, sir, it's 5:01. I'm late." Pettiness begets pettiness. It is simply the way of the world at this point. A roommate once asked me if London was in England or Europe. I just stared at her for a while before saying both. For about 1 minute, I had to convince a colleague that the reason a computer wouldn't turn on was not that I had fastened a zip tie around the power cords too tight, therefore cutting off the power like a water hose. In this case, it was something I said. Was in an AP psychology class and asked the teacher, "Do deaf people listen to music in Braille?" with a straight face. Teacher just stared and the class burst out laughing. I learned later on most of them thought I was just kidding because that's what I usually do. Except I was dead serious. It was me that said it. New relationship with a super nice lady. Romantic weekend getaway. She suggests an afternoon float down a nearby river in a canoe. I know from experience, canoeing is a serious test of relationship potential. My ex-wife and I couldn't even carry a canoe from the beach to the bay without getting into an argument. Anyhow, new relationship, super nice lady. I'm determined to be a great team player and competent man. I have plenty of experience on the water. This should be a cinch. Canoe livery guy drives us to the drop-off while he is taking the canoe off the trailer and telling us how long the float is and where the pickup point is. I'm looking at the river, the wide, slow-moving river, the extremely slow-moving river. Along with the fact that it is a blustery, windy day, I can't for the life of me tell which way the river flows. Some leaves are floating left, some leaves are floating right. I toss in a stick and it just floats around in a circle. I'm starting to sweat. I figure I have a 50-50 chance of guessing correctly, but if I guess wrong, it could end in a disaster. Having to ask is a total embarrassment. I'm hoping the livery guy makes some reference to direction, but no. I'm desperately hoping to see someone else float by, but no. I picture us paddling upstream for 2 hours and being lost on the river. Livery guy hands us our paddles and says, "So if there's nothing else, I'll see you in a couple hours. Have fun." I bite the bullet and decide that asking is the best way forward. Yeah, which way is downstream? Livery guy and super nice lady both laugh, thinking I'm joking. No, I'm serious. Livery guy stops laughing and just points. I'm sure he was thinking that was the most stupid thing he had ever heard. We paddled downriver a bit, and super nice lady says, "Boy, am I glad you asked. I thought downstream was the other way." Anxiety from asking something stupid is a totally real thing, but as I've gotten older, you just gotta bite the bullet and accept that it's better to be safe than sorry. A girl I dated some time ago used to think that pouring alcohol on a fire would put it out because her parents told her. Her parents also told her letting your phone battery die was good for it. Nickel-based batteries, yes, but I believe most batteries nowadays are made from lithium. I was talking about environmental issues with a girl I used to work with, and she wondered why everything wasn't powered by electricity. She pointed to a lamp plugged into a nearby wall. "Look, no pollution. None." She said, "People don't get this, and it's so simple." When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Linked in the description below.